Coming up on the postgame show, we have two close semifinals to break down, but one was a lot more entertaining than the other. Unfortunately, not my teams. And then we're going to preview the finals. It is the Road Dogs, the top-seeded Road Dogs, and the second-seeded Load Management, who are now on a winning streak. We can actually definitely call it a winning streak. They've beat a whole bunch of teams. We'll kind of go over that streak as we preview the finals to wrap up this show. But first, we're going to break down the semifinals and hear what our analysts have to say on the semifinal post-game show presented by Ultra Barber, Salon, and West Warwick. With the finals coming up, the finals MVP is going to be getting some free haircuts. So let's see who that's going to be. We're going to get to figure that out within the next week, as well as our All-Star MVP getting those free haircuts. So stay tuned for that, Ultra Barber Salon. That's why I look so good. Aidan still not has not gone yet. It's okay. We'll get him there. Not a problem. But two close semifinals, and we're going to have our analysts make some picks coming up on the semifinal postgame show. Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me where your legacy be. Yeah. It's a sad day, Maya. It's all right. Everyone has to move on at some time. I'm used to this by now, but it is Load Management advancing to the finals. They didn't miss, and I know they're listening. They were very excited for this show. They're more excited than me right now, unfortunately. And the Road Dogs, they will take on the Road Dogs, who have been kind of that top team, despite their one loss, but that's the only time I'll mention it. They've been that top team throughout the entire season, so it is going to be a good finals. Let's talk about how we got to that finals matchup, and let's start with the Road Dogs finding a way. I think that's kind of, that should be their slogan. The Road Dogs find a way. I think that'll be the caption if they do finish this off, because it's been a lot of close wins, even though they are 7-8-1 now. They have one loss. They have a very good record. It's a very slim point differential, but wins are wins, and they do it again in the semifinals against the Air Mambas. A 2-point win, 63-61 for the Road Dogs as they advance, and I'll start, and we'll do some analysis in a second, but a good game throughout. The Mambas had a lead at halftime by 2, if I'm doing my math correctly, and they led by 5 heading into that fourth quarter. The lead was as much as 9, and I think that's kind of where we need to start. They were up by 9 with 7 to go, and they had the ball. And so that's kind of when it started to turn. They got a rebound in the corner. Chris Faggy tried to pass it. Kevin stole it and kicked it to Karan Bostic, who turned out to kind of be that fourth guy. You know, he was only one of their 4 players in double figures, 11 points. He made 2 threes. It felt like more than that. He was open, and he hit a big one, including that one, to get it back to 6. Like I said, the Mambas had the ball up 9. And now it's 6. They did get it back up to 7 after that, 7 or 8 after that. So they did score after that. It wasn't like they went all downhill from there, but a huge moment to not even get a shot up by 9 in the fourth quarter of a playoff game against the Road Dogs. Just to make it a little worse, and I don't mean to kind of make it what could have been for the Mambas, but they then were up by 5 thanks to a Shaq 3 with 2.5 to go. So it was a battle for the rest of the fourth quarter. Shaq hits a 3. That's when you start to all right, how many possessions are left? We're up by 5. You start counting on your fingers, right? Well, if we do this, we make some free throws. I kind of like our chances. The Road Dogs, of course, go down and score right away. Zeki Burgess makes it a 3-point game. And then just like that, Noah James ties it. And he would score their last 7, Noah James, to give them the win. That 3 to tie it at 58. He would then have a layup after Lewis split some free throws to give the Road Dogs the lead. The Mambas would retake the lead after Splash missed a layup, and Steve Simone followed it up. You're like, all right, so that's kind of like another break that you're going to want if you're the Air Mambas. Like, we just missed a layup, trailing in the final minutes, and we were in the right spot at the right time. Holy crap. And then that put them up 1 with 43 seconds left. Bostic missed one of his threes in that game. Kevin Views got a rebound and was unable to kind of finish near the rim. Gets his own rebound again, trailing by 1, and kicks it out on a scramble play to Noah James, who makes his second 3 in the final 2 minutes to put the Road Dogs up by 2, and that would put them up for good. But a dagger 3, 17 seconds left, and I promise I'll get the analysts in here. But then even with 17 seconds left, the Mambas had the ball, and they kind of decided to wait until about 7 seconds left on the clock to start driving. Chris Vincenzo misses another layup, which is just a hard play at the rim. You guys can debate foul on some of his layups at the end there or not. You're not playing for a foul there. You got to try to make a shot. And then the Road Dogs get the ball and time runs out and that's it. So they don't even get to foul and try to make the Road Dogs make 2 free throws to finish it off. Where in this league, we know how that can go, right? You split some free throws, maybe you get the ball back down by 3 for 2 shots at it. Maya, you can go first. We'll get you in. A lot there, especially in that fourth quarter. A very good game by both teams. I'll do more stats in a second, but what stands out about that fourth quarter that I kind of just recapped? It was a 9-point lead. They were up by 5 with 2.5 to go. They were up by 1 in the final minute, and it was Noah James and the Road Dogs coming up clutch.
I think what stood out to me in that fourth quarter was just like the defensive plays that the Road Dogs made in that final stretch. As you said, like Kevin gets a steal, Ennis got a block. When I think in a transition, he got a block. Burgess got a block on a Shaq 3. Then Noah got a charge to pick up Chris's 5th. They just made a lot of defensive. It's playoff time, and it was a slower game, and it was a lot of fouls called in this game. So the points are lower. So it's about who's gonna make those defensive plays, and I think the Road Dogs made enough defensive plays to keep them within arm's length, and then Noah takes off, he hits threes, and like you said, Air Mambas can't finish it out by not getting a rebound. So I think the Road Dogs, as you mentioned, they do the little things right, and that's why they always are able to pull out these close wins, because they get the defensive stops, they get the offensive rebounds, they can hit big shots. And that really was the difference in this game, because I'm thinking the whole time the Air Mambas have a good chance to pull out this game, especially with Kevin Hughes only having 10 points. And I said Bostic needed to score 7 last show to for them to really pull this win out. He scored 11, so he was big for them, and that's really why the Road Dogs were able to pull out this win.
Well, and those defensive plays were huge, and we can talk about some of the matchups. We'll go to Aidan quickly, but Luis Ramirez able to kind of hold his own against Demoy Ennis, and so you kind of saw that early, that it wasn't just going to be a dunk show in that regard. He still made some plays, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't just a parade to the basket for the Road Dogs. They had to work for it, and that was kind of in the Mamba's favor. Shaq Colon came to play, that's for sure. Chris Vincenzo, let me give you some stats for the Mambas, and we'll throw it to Aidan. Shaq led the way with 19, 3 of 7 from 3. All of those were huge. Steve Simone with 14 and only 1 3, so he was kind of doing more inside the three-point arc in this one. Chris Vincenzo with 12 and 5 and 5. Chris Fag with 6. Luis Ramirez with 6 and 3. And so, the one thing I'll say before I get to Aidan, because he's heard it the most, the race to 60 doesn't necessarily mean the first team to get to 60, because I think technically the Mambas got to 60 first, but it's just that's kind of where the game's going to be pace-wise, to Maya's point. It's not going to be a 99 to 90 game, most likely. And once the pace started, and that favors, I think, the Air Mambas, the less scoring, just because the Road Dogs have some of those higher scoring players, Noah James, Kevin Hughes. If Karan Bostic gets hot, the Air Mambas can score too, but they would rather kind of slug it out with you and make it a 1 or 2 possession game. And that's what they did. And they had their chances, Aidan, but just unable to finish. Credit the Road Dogs defense. Noah James got his 1 charge in. It might have been 2. I think it was 1 earlier in the game and then 1 in the fourth quarter. So he actually got 2 of those in when he's kind of good for 1 a game at least. That fourth quarter, Aidan, just I just watched it back before we started. That's what it comes down to sometimes, right? It's the little things. It's like 1 rebound here, 1 rebound there. Scoring 1 of those layups, which are hard at the rim. They're contested, they're hard, but getting 1 of those to go might have been the difference, Aidan.
Yeah, like we've said all year, the Mambas and the Road Dogs specifically, well, mainly the Mambas. Before I get into it, I just want to say this has been the best season they've had in their Legacy League's tenure. I know I've talked about that a lot. I know I've said it a lot, but I want them to know that because I know they're listening. And I think they can only go up from here. Like we said in the end, they made some not great decisions. And I think that comes with playoff experience and playoff knowledge and knowing you need to close out and play perfect in these games to win, especially playoffs, and especially against champions like the Road Dogs. So I think that was just their main issue. I noticed in the post game last week, Mario was like, "We're not a third quarter team." They came out in the third quarter and I don't want to say dominated, but it just felt like this was the Air Mambas game. And like you said, they were up by five, no, up by nine heading into the fourth, not heading into the fourth, but up by nine in the fourth. And then it just kind of collapsed. And that just goes with playoff experience and doing what you need to do correctly. I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but there was a couple times where I think Splash and Steve Simone and maybe Shaq, maybe none of them, but there was a couple times where a couple players missed some open dunks, and it's so unfortunate, but it's those dumb misses that you really need to limit. They weren't bad shots by any means, but it's like the ball's just not bouncing your way, the rim's not in favor of you, and if they had, two of the three misses that they had, they would have won the game, and that's all in retrospect, but back to the Road Dogs, man, there's only one player on the team currently, well, false. Before this game or during this game, there was only one player on the team that was playing that didn't have a championship, and that was Kevin. So you already, but now he won in mass. So you have that championship DNA and the people who know how to play these games, specifically Noah and Karan. I wasn't around in summer 24 when the Road Dogs won their first championship, but I can only imagine this was the Karan they had because, like Maya said, he needed to be their fourth, and if he got seven, they would win. He got 11, but there was a couple plays where he was commanding the ball and driving in and just doing things I don't really see him do that often. Um, and I think that's what was a really big difference maker. There was one play where, he's hesitating and he's dribbling and he's breaking down his defender and he goes into the rack and he scores. And I'm like, I don't really think I've ever seen him do that because he'll either dish it out or take a midi. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what he wants, and they want to win this game, and that's exactly what they did. A poor performance from Kevin. So the Mambas, like, they had everything going for them because when you look at the box score, Kevin had 11 and he was 5 of 19 and he didn't make a single three. Now, if Kevin was on and he made at least two of those threes or three of those threes, the margin could be a lot different and the outcome or the Road Dogs winning by more points is more likely. But the Mambas had everything in their corner, and like you said at the end, they did take quite a bit of time. They should have went for a 2-for-1, all in retrospect. But the Road Dogs they have championship DNA. They're ready to face load management this upcoming Sunday, and I'm excited, and I know they're ready.
I'll give my 2 cents quickly. Where if you're gonna wait, and this is all, yeah, it's much easier to say here, while we're recording this show, right? But if you're gonna run the clock down, at least give yourself a chance to win by taking a three, right? Don't run the clock down and still go for a two. It's like in the NFL with if you're down 14, do you go for two the first time or the second time? Well, are you trying to tie or are you trying to win? Right? That's two different things. If you're trying to tie, then, in that situation, kicking the extra point makes sense. Going for the two makes sense if you're going to go quicker, just in case you miss to allow them to foul. If we're going to run the clock down, going for a two just lets you tie it. Are we playing for overtime? Like, if you're going to run the clock down, go for three and give the Road Dogs less time to try to come back and beat you. Much easier said than done. But not that they were playing for a tie, but that last possession after everything that just happened, and I think it was out of a timeout? I can't remember if they took a timeout right before that. Either way, knowing that last possession, trailing, the ball was above the 3-point line for 7, 8, or 9 seconds before they got into anything. Peyton, your first time kind of seeing some of this playoff stuff, especially with the Road Dogs and kind of some of their players, but what stands out about the Road Dogs, and I'll do their stats right after you go, but talk about the Road Dogs and them able to escape is the wrong word, but pull out this win, because I think that's the right way to put it. They earned it, but boy, did they have to earn it, Peyton.
They certainly did. Like, throughout the entire game, they were literally down the whole game, where it definitely seemed like the Air Mambas had it in the bag. But Air Mambas had it in the bag. Road Dogs is what I should be saying. Definitely has found their way all season long, where they do only have one loss this season. But they were able in the fourth quarter to take care of Air Mamba's weaknesses that Air Mambas was making in the game to the point where they were able to come back in the end. Noah James taking that final three and then just holding on to it in the end.
And for the Road Dogs, Noah James, you talked about it, 29 points for him, 5 of 8 from 3, and 2 of those when they really needed him most. Karan Bostic with 11, Kevin Views, we talked about it, right? If you're the Air Mambas and you're like, all right, what are some things we need to happen to increase our chances of getting this win before I get to Matt? It's like, all right, let's try to hang around on the boards, and it was 29-26, so check. We didn't get crushed down low. We stayed in front of Des Moines, right? He only finished with 10 points, 4 of 4 from the floor. So, he was quieter than we've seen him in other weeks. All right, we were able to kind of make it hard on him. Check. Kevin Views not going to make a 3 and go, 5 of 19. Yep, we'll take that. Check. And still, Matt, the Road Dogs, led by Noah James, the player we've seen do this time and time again, get the win and go to the finals.
Well, I mean, it's hard to watch that game and not think of Team ASAP last year in Mass. They were in a very similar position. It's pretty much the same team in a lot of ways. It's hard to watch that game and not understand why Noah was frustrated. It seemed like everything was going well. It seemed like, I think from his perspective, he had to carry the load in a lot of ways, and he shot awesome, and he had his Reggie Stewart, his Mike Davis, Kyle Davis, moment, EJ Pemberton moment in the end. But it was, I've never seen Noah more emotional, and I just thought, this is a team that, they have to be sort of remembering what happened last year in Mass, where they were undefeated, very similar situation, and they just came up short in that same spot. And a little bit storybook to see them sort of overcome that.
Well, to be fair, before we get to load management, the Road Dogs have now won 6 in a row. That's what I was checking. So their last loss coming on January 4th, we've talked about who that was to. It's over now. It doesn't matter. But they've won 6 games since, including beating... I lied. Sorry. I can't read. The Road Dogs beat the Halfway Crooks 6 games ago. They are on a 4-game winning streak. 1, 2, 3, 4. But they're also on a winning streak, right? Since last losing, let's try that again, to the Halfway Crooks on February 1st, they've beaten Lob City. They beat the Air Mambas in the regular season. They beat Rags, and they beat the Air Mambas here in the semifinals. So they have also won 4 in a row since that game with the Halfway Crooks. But let's that's a good breakdown for that one. Let's get to the team that is actually on the 5-game winning streak, and now I'm questioning myself, but it is load management. Boy, did they not miss, and they had to wait 17 minutes or so for their shine on the post-game show, which they made sure to tell me they were excited about. But let's get to that game, and let's make you guys break it down for them. It was ultimately a 1-point game, but we can talk about that fourth quarter. What was a double-digit game for most of the game for load management. And a 31-17 first quarter advantage. The Crooks were able to win the second quarter and made a little bit of a run there, tried to get back within single digits. And then a third quarter edge by 8 for load management. They were able to kind of rebuild that lead, and then just stuff kind of got a little crazy at the end. Never, it was a 1-possession game, so to say it never got close is lying, but it took a lot for a little bit of hope on the Halfway Crook side of things. Even though it finishes a 1-point game, I would say a dominating performance by load management, except for maybe the last 4 minutes and maybe that stretch in the second quarter a little. But an overall strong game by them, led by Malik Chase, 7 3-pointers. It felt worse. He had 24 points. Almar Sabat, 18, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds. So doing a little bit of everything. Leonard Williams with 2 threes, 17 points, and 13 rebounds. So he was doing everything. Rodney Theodore with 15, and Sonny Polanco with 12. Here's the story, and we can get Peyton in here first. We'll go in a little reverse order. 16 of 30 from 3, and the Crooks were 12 of 32, and a lot of those, really came kind of towards the end of the game. Jared hit one early. I know I made some in that second quarter, but probably none in the third when they needed it and really had a chance to kind of get back in the game. But Peyton, load management, played well, shot it well, and now they advanced to the finals. What'd you see from them?
Load management, I simply just saw how they've been playing like all season long, well, recently at least, because at the beginning of the season they were like off to a very slow start, but they found themselves once the season got during the season, and this game they found themselves still like I saw them in the beginning just blowing out halfway crooks, just but towards the end they started to go down a little bit where they could blow the game, but they were still finding a way to win the game. So I am definitely glad that I got to see a good game out of them finding their ways, a way of their own to win the game. Just like Road Dogs, they find a way of their own.
Yeah, and especially over the last, couple weeks, they've been rounding into form. My especially, load management, Malik Chase, probably his best game. I think that's fair to say. Coming in the semifinals against a halfway crooks team without Aidan Dozos and David DePina. That's part of the deal, right? We'll kind of talk more about that in a second. But the rebounds were dead even, which again I think is a little messed up. If we were to take out that fourth quarter, I think those stats would look a little differently. 11 for 21 from the free throw line, and a lot of those misses coming down the stretch. Only 4 of 8 for the Crooks in that regard. Not necessarily a bad shooting game stat wise, by the halfway Crooks, but just not enough. And falling down early when load management really didn't miss, which was that first quarter. They were throwing everything in, and they were open, and they were making open shots. How does a start like that impact a game, and what'd you see from load management as they were able to get hot early?
Yeah, load management, I never really doubted them. I picked the Crooks, and I picked the Crooks last week because of their three-point shooting, so it's kind of ironic that load management went out there and literally seemed like they couldn't miss. And I think when you go up big in the start of a game, it kind of deflates a team. Like, especially a team, I'm not saying load management can't shoot, but no team shoots like, I'm pretty sure they probably were shooting 75% from three in the first half. Like, when you go out there in a team that doesn't really shoot like that, like usually in the 30s, like an average team goes out there and can't miss, it deflates a team. And I think that kind of happened with the Crooks. They made a little run in the second quarter, which I think gave them some life, but then they came back out in the third quarter and hit threes again. And I think for load management, when you can have a game where Almar doesn't, like, he scored 18, he's your second leading scorer, but when he doesn't have to score 20 plus, if you win and you're up by that much because everyone is hitting threes, everyone is getting to the rim, it makes life easy. And if they play like that, the Road Dogs are not beating them. So they play a really good game, and I've always thought that they're the best defensive team in the league, and I think they proved that in this game too. I think the halfway Crooks could have used another ball handler like Aidan Denozo. He wasn't there. I think they could have used another ball handler to get them to the rim. I think they were missing getting to the rim and applying pressure, kind of getting to the rim and kicking out to their open shooters. They kind of got that going in the second quarter, but it wasn't as consistent as you would like. Nick was really the only one that could get downhill, and they were collapsing on him. So I think that was just the difference. And but I do have to say, the load management, they have to figure out their free throws. They have to figure out the free throws at the end of games, especially with a team like Road Dogs, who always seem to find a way to win close games. They have to hit free throws, or that's going to be their downfall.
Yeah, it almost right cost them, but they played well throughout. Where again was close, but took a lot to kind of get it back to what it was at the end of that fourth quarter. To say you never doubted them is crazy when you picked against them. Let me just put that out there. That's why I was dying laughing. Okay, that's bold. That is wild to be driving the halfway Crooks bandwagon, and then I never doubted load management. It's okay, it's all right. But yeah, Aidan Dozo is obviously a big piece missing, but the halfway crooks still able to, make it interesting and have their little run there. Tyler Ciccione with 21, Nick Lemoyne with 27 and 7, somebody named Joey Zocco with 14 and 4 threes, and still, too much to overcome, right? When you kind of get punched like that early, you need everything. The game will always flip. You would expect them to not make all of those shots the whole time. They almost did by the numbers. But Matt, load management impresses, and we talked about it. I don't know how many shows you've been on, a couple, Matt, but earlier in the season with load management, one of the things that at least I said, I know for sure, was wait till they can start making some shots, because we saw it early with the ball movement, with the defense, with the transition, with a Rodney Theodore, with an Almar Sabat. When they get out and run, they're dangerous. And that was before they were making, over 50% of their threes, which you can't bank on. But that was, when they were in the low 30s, like inconsistent 3-point shooting early in the season, and they were still in these games competing. Now they're making more of these threes, Matt, and you saw it, what that does for a team like this. What'd you see from them? And don't look ahead too much yet, because you'll have your time to preview that. But in this one, how did that shooting, help them, and how did it impact the other parts of the game?
No, I think we've seen the ascension of Malik Chase. I think, especially in the beginning, they relied on Almar in a big way to sort of get things going. And I think, Almar had 10 assists, didn't have the most points. I think there's a lot more opportunities sort of for other guys to take a step. I mean, when they have Rodney, Malik, Almar, and Leonard, I mean, is there a better starting forward in the league right now when those guys are all there? I mean, they're all friends. They can play fast. They can slow it down. There's not a style of play that they can't sort of adapt to right now. It's a pretty special team to see play. They have a lot of sort of aspects that remind me of the Skyhawks over the summer. They just are a fun team. They feel like they have fun. They feel like they just all work well together. They rotate really well. They just do a lot of things really well.
And, the best four is maybe right. Availability might be the best ability, right? And so it's kind of funny how they didn't have all their players for a lot of the season, and you kind of saw that impact along with the shooting. You would expect all of their players to be there for the damn championship game, right? I mean, they were all there for the semis. And so I would expect, and when we preview it in a second, we'll kind of look at it that way, where if they have their full team and so do the Road Dogs, not that it's 3-on-4, because, it's 4-on-4, but how do the load management 4 or 5 players that they lean on most match up against the Road Dogs' top 3, plus whoever's kind of playing that fourth man role for them that we've talked about, right? So we'll get more to that in a second, but shout out to load management. That was an impressive performance, especially, and it's so, I say it every time, it's like 7 or 8 games, and that's when really people start figuring out the league in a sense of their touch. Malik Chase is the perfect example of that, where, he's a good player, and we knew that, 2 months ago, but it's different on lower rims. We saw what it can be like when he doesn't miss, sure, but he has so many other aspects that he can impact the game and then also shoot the 3. It's like, all right, now it's a lot to handle for any team when he can stretch out, maybe, bring out the big that the Road Dogs have, right? If you have to respect that 3-pointer, you can get Q out of the paint, and that's going to open stuff up for them big time offensively in the finals. Aidan, if you want to send the halfway crooks off properly, you're more than welcome to. I'll throw this in now before we move on too fast, but an unnamed player, was talking about the games, and somebody who plays in Rhode Island League, and I have to get this in especially because it's my team, but, thought that the halfway crooks had the best team kind of throughout the season, right? If they had their full team, if you can do that all day. And then someone else on the halfway crooks, when I said that to them, said, yeah, no shit. Which just sums up everything, right? Not having the full team and having this whole season where, I liked our chances, right? If the full team's there, it would have been an awesome game, just because of the matchups and a David DePina and an Aidan Dozos. So I thought it was funny, just kind of getting some of the perspective. And that was from a player who played in the other semifinal, kind of saying that about the halfway crooks roster, which is interesting, kind of that perspective right around the league. And it doesn't matter, because you have to show up and you have to go win the game, which load management did on both of those fronts. But Aidan, Yeah, come on, give me one last time about the halfway crooks. Go ahead. I mean, not the best game, but I think the fight was there, and almost with the free throw situation, almost.
That's right. That's what we said, and you said my one of my favorite sayings that I have for this league: the best ability is availability, because that's really what it comes down to. Do I agree with your unnamed player saying the halfway crooks had one of the best team had the best team the whole season? I don't know if I necessarily do, but I do think they had a very, very, very good team and high-powered offense, fast pace, can score at all three levels. But the one thing they lacked in this game, um, is like Maya said, they kind of felt like you guys were deflated after the load management just came out and just wasn't missing. And I know you guys probably weren't, but there was like when you're watching a game and it's like a 15-0 or a 15-2 run, you're like, okay, the team on the receiving end of those 15 points is not going to be happy, but they might just hunker down and not play. That didn't happen with the Crooks. Like you said yourself, you had 14 points or 15 points and no 14, and you missed your first three, but then you made the next four, or yeah, and you made your next four. um and that's what I think kind of kickstarted the Crooks coming back and kind of realizing, oh, there might be a chance. But that also happened when load management took out their main players and kind of played backyard basketball, because that's what happens when you're up. You Not that they got a big head, but they felt like this was their game. And if you're making all your shots in the beginning and the other team's not, you're feeling very happy. And like you said, Malik had 7 threes. Most of those came within the first half, and then he was kind of quiet later on. But that's what it was. The load management had a very, very good first half and a good third quarter. Fourth quarter just kind of fell away from them, not because of anything they did. It's just the Crooks were trying to get as many points as possible because they were fighting down. And then you had the fouling battle, and that's kind of where some things there were discrepancies. The halfway Crook shot 8 free throws compared to load management's 21. I know Nick hoped we talked about this on the post game, and I'll touch on it a little bit because it is what it is. The refs are always going to call whatever they want, but 21-8 free throws is kind of a decent disparity when a lot of the
Yeah.
times the Crooks were driving in.
No,
Go
no,
ahead,
and so
continue.
the only reason I'm going to cut you off is because a solid, Nick's on my team. I'm aware of how this goes, right? A solid 10 of those were in that fourth quarter, in the final 2 minutes, right? We fouled at least 5 times. I fouled out, right? So, if you kind of those 10, let's pretend, the first 38 minutes, it was more like 13-8 ish free throws, right? Which I'll go back to Aidan quickly. I don't think that's as big of a discrepancy as a 21-8 sounds.
No, it's not. But watching the game, it genuinely felt like load management was getting to the free throw line way more than we thought. And I think that's what kind of, not an illusion, but I think that's what kind of got into people's heads. And you think about it, you're like, oh, okay. But then you look at the actual numbers. Like you said, they had a lot of free throws. Leonard shot 13 free throws, and most of them probably came in the final 2 minutes. So it's easy to look at stuff like that, but it's something I wanted to point out because when you get in those late game situations, like Maya said, they want to hit their free throws, but you need to hit your free throws. And there's a chance that in the final 2 minutes of the game, you're going to shoot 10 to 15. That's just how basketball goes now. It's somewhat annoying, but it makes sense. But if you're able to make them and continue like that, that's what's going to happen. But overall, this was a good game, and it's difficult for the halfway crooks coming off this loss because you had every kind of piece you needed, but there were some instances where you would drive in and not that you guys would slow down or well, you would stop, but there was a couple possessions where you drive in, you right at the block and you stop for a second because there's no Terrence cutting in, there's no Aidan cutting in, there's no DePina cutting in because it's just it unfortunately happens like that because if those guys aren't on the court when that's happening or not even trying to move, you didn't have a lot of cutting in and out. And I think that's what kind of killed the halfway crooks in this is you needed another ball handler like Maya said. I mean, Jared does his job perfectly well, but you needed somebody else, and load management I think took advantage of you guys having lesser players and knowing your guys' game pretty well, and load management just looked like the best team I've ever seen.
Oh my God. All right. That's enough of that. Jesus. Aidan watched Lob City for 2.5. All right. Stop it. All right. That's all right. That's all right. They looked good. Jeez. God. All right. Let's get to the finals. This is a good transition. I hope Cody smacks you around next time he sees you. Let me just put it that way. The best team he's ever seen. Whap whap. All right.
I don't think they can, because I never bet against Lob City, so I have a good standing with them.
That's fine. You said the best team. Stop it. All right. So it's going to be the Road Dogs and load management in the finals. Let's break it down. All right. It will be Sunday the 22nd at 7 p.m. It's confirmed. I've texted everybody. It's been posted. It's going to be 7 o'clock. All right. 7 o'clock finals game this Sunday. Road Dogs and load management. These teams last met in week 2. It was an 86-82 victory in overtime for the Road Dogs. And so there you go. So we can only be so lucky to get another overtime game. Noah James had 37 and 6 threes. He also had 8 rebounds and 5 assists. Omar Rahman played. This might have been the game he got hurt. And I'm not sure, because he had 21, so he still had a pretty good game. Demoy Ennis with 16 and Kevin Views only with 8. So since then, we've seen Kevin Views come on. We haven't seen Omar Rahman, and we won't in the finals. He didn't qualify. And that was already after Ethan got hurt. No Karan Bostic in this game in week 2 when these teams played, but I expect him to be there for the finals. For load management, Leonard Williams led the way with 21 points and 9 rebounds. He made 5 of 11 threes. So that's on me, because he made a 3 against the Halfway Crooks, and I was like, shoot it again. He's like, I will. I'm like, oh, shit. Damn it. I woke up a monster. 5 of 11 from 3 in this week 2 matchup. Malik Chase had 20 and just 3 rebounds. Jonathan Batista with 17. Almar with just 15. And, you know, in this one, load management shot 15 of 31 from 3. So there you go. There's some of that hot shooting earlier in the season. Maybe I was wrong the whole time. While the Road Dogs only shot 9 of 27. But they did win the rebounding edge in this matchup, 35-25 in favor of the Road Dogs. Despite all that, it went into overtime. And so then it's a 2-minute overtime. In the playoffs, we would do a 2-minute overtime forever. So it'd be 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes until somebody wins the game, right? There's no sudden death in the playoffs. We have had a triple overtime finals at one point. I played in that game, unfortunately, and when I say it like that, it's because I'm not good. And if I'm playing in a triple overtime finals game, you know, some people fouled out. Okay, it was a long time ago. My team did not win, so there you go. That sums it all up. But let's get back to the Road Dogs and load management. Let's see what these guys think. So let's have you make a pick, only because we've already been going a little while, but you can make your pick and then break it down, all right, and defend your pick. We'll kind of flip around the order this time. We'll kill some of the suspense. I'll put Aidan. Well, no, Aidan's gonna go last because he can. And we'll have Matt go last too. So Maya and Peyton, you guys will go first. Maya, we'll have you go first, only because I know Aidan and Matt can make different reasons. You guys all can, but Aidan's gonna talk a whole bunch anyway. Maya, who do you have? Okay. Let me just remind you, you said you never doubted load management about 10 minutes ago. All right, so maybe that'll impact your decision. Unclear. It hurts as a halfway member of the Halfway Crooks. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm not crying. Who do you have, all right, on Sunday night, hoisting the trophy, and why?
Yeah, I know I said I never doubted them. I just meant I didn't think they were going to get blown out. And I don't think that today either, or Sunday. But the past 2 weeks when you've asked me this question, I've said the Road Dogs, and I just feel like I can't switch up on the Road Dogs now. So I will pick the Road Dogs to win. And my reasoning is simply, I don't know. I believe in them. I was more confident in this pick before the semis and seeing how load management played. But I will go with this because I do not think they'll shoot 50% from the 3. And I think, no offense, Joey and the Halfway Crooks, I think Road Dogs defense is better than the Halfway Crooks. So load management won't be shooting warm-up 3s to get them going. I think it will be another slow defensive game. And I have confidence in the weird voodoo magic that the Road Dogs have in pulling out late games, pulling out these games late in the quarter, and I also going to stand on that because if I was the Road Dogs and we were in a close game with load management in the fourth quarter, I'm fouling their worst free throw shooter. I don't know who that is, but they could probably go back and watch and find out who that is, and I would foul and take away possessions from them. That's what I would do. So I'm going with the Road Dogs to pull out a close win to take home the trophy hardware
thing, a trophy hardware thing. Besides Maya just throwing daggers to the halfway crooks about which is it's fine. Now it's on. It's all good. It's all good. You know, it's easier to get out to those 3-point shooters in all seriousness for the Road Dogs when you have someone protecting the rim like Demoyenis, right? And so that's a big difference where, you know, go ahead. You want to go drive in there after we close out hard on these threes? Have fun. You know, we'll see you at the rim, right? And so I think both teams will kind of take that. It's definitely a race to 60, maybe 65 or 70, just because a lot of the players in these games, I'm sure, are going to still make a ton of shots. You know, Massachusetts was 71-54, but that was a little bit of garbage time action. So it's kind of going to be in that 60 to 70 range as we expect, which means a slower pace and probably a lot more defense and you know, protecting the rim, right? Successfully protecting the rim. And you talk about fouling, you know, fouling in the last 2 minutes early is always a good plan. Then you got to watch out for foul trouble too. And so that then becomes a thing where, and throughout the entire game, foul trouble in a game like this could be big for these teams that we've talked about, you know, kind of rely on their better players, right? You know, that's what these teams are going to need to win a championship, kind of the 4 or 5 we've talked about for load management primarily, and the 3, you know, 3.5 is mean, but like the big 3 and then somebody else or, you know, 2 stepping up, like that's it. So if one of those guys gets in foul trouble, it can really impact the game for both teams. Peyton, who do you got and why?
I'm also going to have to pick the Road Dogs, and the reason I say them is simply because it's a matter of strengths and weakness. It's a matter of strength and weaknesses. During these past 2 games, as much as I am very impressed on how much of a hot streak that load management's been on recently, I have seen a lot of weaknesses in their game, especially from this past Sunday where they were up a lot and then started like going down a little bit, especially with their free throws. But Road Dogs was down like most of the entire game against Air Mambas, and in the fourth quarter they were able to take advantage of Air Mambas' weaknesses, and they were able to win that game. So I feel Road Dogs just has too much strengths, and they will take advantage of load management's weaknesses in this game.
All right. I'm glad you named some of the weaknesses because I'm sure that's already up on the whiteboard for load management. So there you go. So, all right. That's fair. I like it. Matt, who you got and why? Who you picking?
It's tough for me. You know, I think if Rodney, Leonard, Almar, and Malik put 15 points up, and Sonny Polanco goes 4 for 4 from 3, I don't see them losing. I think Noah's going to be there at the end of the game, dreaming of Omar Rahman, and but I do worry about them in the fourth quarter, and I don't worry as much about the Road Dogs in the fourth quarter. I'm going to go load management. It feels like their time. It just feels like they're on the right track for it.
I'm only laughing because he's like, you know, I don't worry about the, you know, Road Dogs in the fourth quarter, but I'm going load management, like off the top rope. I love it. No, and you know, which team has been in, you know, it's going to be a close game, right? I would be very surprised if this wasn't a close game, you know, just kind of throughout. The Road Dogs, and that was kind of something I was supposed to be doing my homework on. If we pull up their schedule, you know, well, one, you know, just the Road Dogs have played in more Legacy Leagues games in general, right? And so it doesn't mean load management hasn't played in close basketball games. It's different. It's weird. It gets weird down the stretch. For the Road Dogs, we talked about that 4-point win in week 2 over load management in overtime, a 2-point win over the halfway crooks after the winter break, a 1-point win over Lob City on January 11th, which now is literally 2 months ago, a 10-point loss to the Crooks, throw it out, right? Whatever. A 3-point win over Lob City. They beat the Mambas by 10 on the 22nd on that weird afternoon because the snowstorm was coming. and then they beat Rags by 8, which was a little more than that. That's a little deceiving too. But there's a couple games in there that were very close that they had to pull out, especially that week 2 win in overtime. And so, let's kind of do the same thing. Let's be fair. For load management, not that they weren't in close games, but they were on the wrong side of a Lob City, storm in week 1, which now seems crazy to think about. We talked about that week 2 matchup. They beat Rags by 2, so there you go. They lost to the Mambas by 3 on January 11th. They beat Lob City by 1, so another successful close game finish. They beat Rags by 4 on February 15th. They beat the Halfway Crooks by 3, and that was that crazy comeback where they didn't even need free throws, right? They were trailing in that fourth quarter, and we're like, we're not even going to worry about our free throw situation because we're just going to pull out this win without that. So forget about that issue. And they kind of ran away from Rags a little bit. I'm on the wrong schedule. They beat the Air Mambas to close out the regular season by 8, and so that was a little more dominant there. So all of that to say, I just thought it was funny that Matt was like, Road Dogs in the fourth quarter, but load management. Matt, you want to respond on why you're picking load management after all?
I just wasn't sure, so I just went, how do I feel? What do I think? I went with, my feelings rather than my head. I don't know what to tell you.
I love it.
I think Almar's going to have to play big in that fourth quarter. I think it's very possible that there's going to be some cold feet and Almar's going to have to take over.
Well, and I will say it from, I think this is going to be our 30th finals, the Rhode Island finals, now that we had 2 already take place this winter in the other states. If you give me 1 second. 30th overall Legacy Leagues champion. So I've seen all of those finals, and there's always cold feet. It's always like Brick City for the first couple minutes. Very rarely does load management do what they did in the first quarter against the Halfway Crooks to start the finals. It's just human nature, right? And so who's going to overcome that and snap out of that more quickly? Because it doesn't last forever. And right by the middle of the first quarter, everybody's sweating, and it's like, all right, cool, now it's basketball. But oh yeah, there's bricks going on, and then especially in that fourth quarter, it slows down even more than we've ever seen, and it's like, all right, what kind of offense are we running, right? I think we know what the Road Dogs are going to do, just schematically, really quick. Noah James may or may not have the ball, and it may or may not be a screen by Demoyenis, right? And then let's play from there. And so that's worked. That's a pretty good offense if you just go from there with Kevin Views kind of on your right, hanging out, waiting for you. Load management can do the same type of thing with Almar, who's been in games like this. Let's not forget last winter against the Washed Up Boys, hit those big free throws to win the championship. Needed both of them, and made them both in clutch time to beat the Washed Up Boys a year ago. So, he's been in big games in this league. I'm sure other players on that team have also been in big games. I know that they've also played basketball. But, when the game gets close, right, how comfortable are you in those moments? All right, that's 2 for the Road Dogs, 1 for load management. Aidan, are you going to because listen, the Road Dogs have been tame. They've been, not really ragging on you guys on the podcast. Load management, on the other hand, was like, we can't wait for the show, and screw you for picking the Halfway Crooks, right? They were very direct about their intentions at the end of that semifinal game. Are you going to be swayed, Aidan? Who you got and why?
So I've been thinking about this since the games have ended on Sunday night, and I was even mentioning to Ramsey, I'm like, I don't know who I want to pick or why I want to pick them. I'll give reasonings for both teams, and then I'll decide. But I think it's going to be a good game, and like you just mentioned, load management doesn't often start that hot, and I think that's what really, really boosted them against you guys last week. And again, you mentioned when the game slows down or cold feet or just Brick City, because it is the finals, you got to think about that. But then again, I think all those things, and then I realized they have Almar on their team, and I know that Almar can fill all the gaps, and that might be asking too much of him because I know the rest of his team can do that as well. But I know Almar would not back down and won't back down if he needs to take the ball in his hands and make it his game. For the Road Dogs, we've talked about it. Noah James just runs that team. The last 4 or 5 weeks, it's been the Kevin View shows in terms of points and flashiness and just scoring a lot. But it's Noah James. He's one of the most skilled players I've seen play on 8.5, and I'm probably sure he's the same way on 10. But it's hard to stop Noah because he's very shifty and he can score not whenever he wants, but most of the time. And I think he had to earn those points last week against the Air Mappas. And like Matt said, because he's taking photos, and the pure emotion from Noah winning that game, you just kind of know how much that felt to him. Um, who I'm going to pick? Oh God, um, I'm. I think I'm. Damn, this is hard, Joey. I hate this. It's not easy like it's been in the past. To me, they've come easier picking champions, but um, I'm going to pick. I think I'm. Shit. I don't remember what I said in the beginning. I know I picked these two to lead into the finals. Um, Load Management's probably going to hate me because I picked them last week, but my mind's telling me to pick the Road Dogs. But I'm not going to pick them because I'm going to pick Load Management because I'm going with what my gut tells me. I've been contemplating this. I'm picking Load Management for the main reason that I don't really have any reasoning. It's just like Matt said, it's a feeling. I know both teams are going to go at it. I know we're going to hopefully have a great basketball game. We have some of the best athletes on both of these teams, and I'm not sure. My mind and my body is telling me to pick Load Management, and I'm not going to fight it.
Well, that was some good television, huh? Wow, what a switch up. He has no reasons. It's totally fine. Let me just recap really quickly. So the last finals was the Skyhawks, right, over the summer. Okay, and they did win, and it was Jalen Benson MVP, controversially, with Omar Rahman also right there scoring. Noah James had 10 points and was really taking more of a back seat in that game. And who did they beat but the Road Dogs? Different looking Road Dogs, but they beat the Road Dogs over the summer. If we go back to that game I was talking about for Almar and Lob City against Washed Up Boys, he led Lob City with 24 points and was on the same team as Noah West. All right, and so had 24 points, 0 of 3 from 3. It was a different kind of role for him. He didn't really have to shoot the 3. 9 of 19, but still led Lob City, and like I said, came up big when they needed it down the stretch to lead Lob City to that championship, was also Finals MVP. If we go back one more time to the summer of 2024, that was when the Road Dogs last won it. So you talk about the history here, not Kevin Views, but Anthony Lyons, Karan Bostic. They blew out the Game Breakers, which Gian is not listening, but he will be back in the summer, so he will be listening this summer. And I will remind him that I brought this up because they punked the Game Breakers. They won by 35 in that finals, in a game where both teams, that was a Road Dogs kind of Cinderella story almost, against the Game Breakers team that was a 2 seed the entire year, had a lot of offensive players, and the more athletic, the more physical, the more defensive team dominated that game. And that's where I'll leave that. So that's when the Road Dogs last won it, the Skyhawks over the summer, and Almar has his championship from Lob City a year ago. I don't have to make a pick. This is great. I will be on the call for the game in a PA announcer role, which is always fun. I enjoy that for the finals. It adds to that experience, right? It adds to that energy, the nervous energy sometimes of the finals, but it makes it feel like a real game. I already know some people are going to come out and watch, so definitely come out to the Oakland Beach Boys and Girls Club on Sunday, March 22nd. We'll be starting right on time, so 7 o'clock-ish tip-off. You can also watch live on YouTube, but we want the fans there because then they're cheering and people get dunked on. It's a good time. And so come on out in Warwick for the finals, which is this Sunday. And that'll be a wrap for the winter season. So 2 picks for the Road Dogs, 2 picks for Load Management. I think that means we'll get a good game. Usually, and I'll end on this, usually between the semis and the finals, that's 3 games, right? 2 semifinals games and 1 championship game. Usually one of the games is kind of a blowout. And so if we get a blowout usually in one of the semifinals, usually it means the finals is going to be close because usually there's 1 blowout and 2 close ones. Well, we had 2 close ones in the semis, and I think the finals are going to be close too. And so we might actually be able to pull off a 3-for-3. Well, I think it's fair to say if the finals are close, Load Management over the Halfway Crooks was the one that wasn't close. And there you go. My theory kind of holds true, right? Despite the final score, they deserve that one. Damn, how do I end the show on that? All right, thanks for everybody for watching the post-game show. And we will be back after the finals. We got to do one more show to kind of recap the finals. It won't be as long as this one, but we got to recap the finals, and we'll have a champion at that point. So for Maya, Aidan, Matt, and Peyton, I'm Joey. Thanks for watching the post-game show, and hopefully see you this Sunday. Get your butt out there, 7 o'clock. Trust me, it's better in person. Thanks for watching the post-game show.